Before we leave the topic of inflation, let's look at one more issue, and that is how much can you buy with the money you make? So let's look at income. So for example, here we can see the per capita nominal income, so $1928, 1928 income for different provinces. So if you lived in Alberta in 1928, you made for the whole year $548. In 1933, you made $212. So income went down between 1928 and 1933. What happened during that period of time? The Great Depression, right? And the Great Depression was bad. Unemployment was really high. And so lots of people lost their jobs. Those who kept their jobs lost a lot of pay. And you can see that here in the fact that the average income was significantly lower in 1933 than in 1928. But let's look at today. So if the average annual income here in Alberta right now is about $59,708, right? Remember that the income across Canada is sitting, you can see that Alberta is higher, right, than the other provinces. Manitoba at 48.7. You can see Nova Scotia at 45. So if we're making in the 40s and 50s now per year, how does that compare to what we made in 1928? Is $548 in 1928, how does that compare to the $59,000 today? Is it all just inflation, or has our buying power changed? So how do we figure out what those incomes would be in different places or different times? So we can use the same method to figure out what income in Alberta is compared to Quebec. We can use this to compare 1928 income to 2018. So here's how it works. We can look at nominal income and real income. So nominal income is in current year's dollars, and real income is your purchasing power, what you can get for your money. So we take nominal income and we adjust it for inflation. We want to know how much you can actually get for your money, your buying power. So we want to know is real income. Suppose that if your nominal income went up 30%, you got a raise, 30% raise, but at the same time, all the things that you buy cost 30% more, so 30% more inflation. Are you any better off? No, because your real income has not changed. If you get 30% more pay, but things cost 30% more, your buying power has not increased. So what we really want to know as workers is, can we get more for our income? Can we buy more? So we want to know that our real income is increasing. Well, here's the question. We found that in 1928, Albertans were making $548. In 2018, they are making close to $60,000. Has the purchasing power of Albertans increased? Can you get more than your grandparents or great-grandparents? Or is it all just inflation? So how do we figure that out? All right, well, we have a formula, and that formula will compare either 2 years or 2 locations. So let's do it for years. Okay, so we know that nominal income in 1928 was $548, and we want to know what is that in today's dollars. So let's find the real income in 2018 dollars. So if you made $548 in 1928, how much is that today? Well, to do this calculation, what we need to do is we need to take that income of $548 and adjust it for the price index at that time. So CPI in 1928 was 9.1. CPI in 2018 is 133.4. So if we take our $548, divide it by 9.1, and multiply it times 133.4, we find that $548 in 1928 is the equivalent of $8,033 in 2018. So notice when we do the adjustment for inflation, so when we adjust for the cost of living in 1928 versus the cost of living in 2018, the amount he would have made in 1928 is really worth about $8,000 today. So it's not just inflation that has caused our income to go from 548 to 59,708, but it is an increase in real income, in buying power. We can get a lot more today than our grandparents and great-grandparents. We can do the same kind of calculation for 1933. In 1933, you made $212. We can divide that by the CPI at the time of 7.1, multiply it times the CPI of 2018 of 133.4. And if you made $212, the average annual income in the middle of the the Great Depression, that would have been the equivalent, so 212 divided by 7.1 times 133.4, that's the equivalent of $3,983 today. So now you know when they talk about the Great Depression, they talk about how terrible it was. Well, can you imagine living off of $4,000 a year today? That's what it would have been like living in the Great Depression, having $4,000 a year in income today. So this method that we used, we can use this across time, just like we did here, but we can also use it across places. So let's say you're thinking about moving to Vancouver, and you've been offered a job. Or maybe you already have a job here and you're trying to decide whether or not it's worth giving up that good paycheck for a job somewhere else. You can use the same process to calculate your income in one area versus what you would need in another area based on the cost of living. So here we took 1928 income and converted it into 2018 income, but you could also take an Alberta paycheck and turn it into what you would need to buy the same things in Vancouver. Okay, same process, and you're adjusting based on that price index. It tells us the cost of living, right, for the household, CPI. All you have to do is make sure that the CPI has the same benchmark. So it's easy to do within a country. Like we could compare you make $100,000 working here in Red Deer, you're thinking about moving to Montreal. How much would you need to make in Montreal to be the equivalent to making the $100,000 you make here? You can do that calculation with the CPIs for Red Deer and for Montreal. Where it gets more complicated is when you're trying to compare that cost of living between countries, because no longer do you have the same benchmark. It's not compared to the same CPI of 100. The scale is different. So using this method requires that those price indexes have the same common measurement of 100 in order to do it. So we've been looking at our real income, our buying power, and really the underlying question we want to answer is, are we better off? That is our purchasing power, is what we can get for our money increasing over time? Or is it like the Dilbert cartoon, which suggests that we can never get ahead? Now, there's a mathematical certainty that no matter how hard you work, inflation will make you poorer. Well, if we think about it, if our nominal income does not grow faster than inflation, then our real income will decline because our buying power doesn't go up. We need more money to buy the same things. So how have we been doing? Well, here you can see in blue, that is Canadian income. And then you can see here red, the consumer price index, so our measure of inflation. And we've actually been pretty good in Canada in terms of earnings keeping up with inflation. you can see in periods of time where earnings did not keep up with inflation, that in those years after, the earnings did catch up. And that's because we have strong unions and bargaining power of workers so that they can negotiate wages to keep up with inflation. In other countries like the US, their real income is continually declining as their nominal income does not keep up with inflation. So you can see here's Canada, that real income is pretty flat. So our nominal wage does keep up with inflation, but our purchasing power has not gone much higher than that. So while we're getting raises, most of our raises are cost of living adjustments, and so our buying power has not increased considerably in the last couple decades.